Alright, welcome to my Mage overview video for Season of Discovery in Classic WoW, the brand new season coming up on November 30th. Now I'm just going to start this off by saying that mages are probably the most controversial class to talk about for Season of Discovery, and that is because mages can now heal. Yeah, you heard that correctly. You can have a mage healer in your raid or your group, and they can actually heal you quite effectively. Like, they're a pretty good healer. So today I'll be covering all of the brand new class abilities, or I guess class runes, for the mage coming up in Season of Discovery, and then I'll be making some suggested combinations of how to spec as fire, how to spec as arcane, and how to spec as, well, which runes to combine for healing as well. So let's just start this off by talking about the mage overview once again for Season of Discovery right here. And number one, we have the chest runes. So the first one to look at here, we can just start from the right and go for regeneration. This one is the mage healer ability in this case, and it's a channeled ability. Heals the target for X amount of health over 3 seconds and applies something called Temporal Beacon for 30 seconds. Now, Temporal Beacon in this case is important for later. It might not make a lot of sense right off the bat, but it's very important for later abilities. So here's the thing: Temporal Beacon records the subject's space-time position, and 100% of all arcane damage done by the caster will then be converted to chronomatic healing and divided among the caster's current Temporal Beacon targets. In this case, you can channel regeneration on target 1 and target 2, and then you can just deal arcane damage, and now your arcane damage is going to heal these temporal beacons. And as you can see, Temporal Beacon lasts for 30 seconds, and the channel itself is a 3-second channel. So imagine if you put out 5 channels in a row, that applies 5 beacons, and now your damage done, arcane damage in this case, is also going to heal all those targets or beacons. You also have Enlightenment. You deal 10% more damage while you have more than 70% mana, and while below 30% mana, 10% of that mana regeneration continues while casting. You also have Fingers of Frost. If you played Wrath or even like TBC and stuff like that, you might know about this one. Gives your chill effect a 50% chance to grant you the Fingers of Frost effect, which treats your next 2 spell cast as if the targets were frozen, and obviously lasts 15 seconds, so giving Frost pretty good like damage increase right there. And then you have something called Burnout. Increases your spell critical strike chance with all spells by 15%, but your non-periodic spell critical strikes now have an additional mana cost of 1% of your base mana. It's important to note this is of your base mana, not increased by intellect, by the way, so this one is looking really good. Like, the increased cost isn't really that bad. And next up, that's the chest runes covered. We also have the legs runes in this case, once again going from right to left, starting with the healer ability, because I think that is the ability that most people care about. You have mass regeneration. Heals all of target player's party members within 15 yards of the target player of their health, X amount of their health, for over 3 seconds, and also applies Temporal Beacon to every single target, in this case only for 15 seconds, but still, that is insane, and only has a 6 second cooldown. So 6 seconds cooldown, 3 second channel. That is insane. Once again, it also applies the Temporal Beacon that we just talked about in the previous post. So now we have Living Flame. That is probably the fire one in this case. Summons a Spellfire Flame that moves towards the target, leaving a trail of Spellfire. So this one will have to like require some coordination and some team play, but you're basically leaving a trail of fire, and the more enemies step inside that, the more damage you deal. And the trail deals X amount of Spellfire damage every single second to nearby enemies. You also have Icy Veins, really good frost ability, or I guess like every single ability in this case, but hastens your spellcasting, increasing spellcasting speed by 20%, and reduces the pushback suffered from damaging attacks while casting by 100%. This one can be used for multiple specs, by the way. Then you have Arcane Surge. Unleash all of your remaining mana in a surge of energy, focus at the target, dealing X amount of arcane damage, increased by up to 300% based on your mana remaining. Afterward, your normal mana regen is activated and increased by 300% for 8 seconds, so you're basically using your mana here to deal massive amounts of damage and then getting some mana back afterwards. Alternatively, use a mana like Mana Gem or even Evocation to get your mana back, so it could be really good. It also has a 2-minute cooldown, so this is one big blast. using all of your mana, and the more mana you have, the more damage you deal, and you basically go but you get some mana back, but you probably don't get everything back, so make sure you use this with evocation or evocation or something like that, or combine it with mana potions or mana gems. Those are the leg runes. We only have one more set of runes to cover. Those are the gloves. In this case, we have rewind time. This one is important with the temporal beacons. Your current target with your temporal beacon instantly heals all damage taken over the last 5 seconds, ineffective on targets that did not have a temporal beacon 5 seconds ago. So imagine in this case, you have an ability that a boss can use that literally deals AoE damage to take every single raid member down to 10% health. In this case, you can literally press rewind time and instantly heal everyone with temporal beacons for all that damage, literally all the damage they took over the last 5 seconds. So if a boss has a heavy hitting AoE ability, you as a mage can pretty much single-handedly heal that. Combine that with something like, if you go back to the previous one, mass regeneration. This one is an AoE heal and applies temporal beacon to every single one. So in that case, you probably want to use this either right after or right before that's being cast, so you can actually apply temporal beacons and then literally press one button and you heal everything with rewind time. You also have Living Bomb, a really good fire ability in this case. The target becomes a living bomb taking damage over 12 seconds. After 12 seconds, or when the spell is dispelled, the target explodes, dealing even more fire damage to all enemies within 10 yards. You have Arcane Blast, really good for Arcane of course. Blast the target with energy, dealing X amount of arcane damage, and each time you cast Arcane Blast, the damage and healing of all other arcane spells is increased by 15%, and the mana cost of Arcane Blast is increased by 175%. It's important to note, every single time you cast, the damage and healing of all your arcane spells is increased by 15%, so as a mage healer, you can literally make an argument to use Arcane Blast over rewind time. It just depends on the boss fight. If a boss, once again, deals massive AoE damage that you have to take care of really fast, then rewind time is great. Otherwise, Arcane Blast, like your healing done, is based on how much arcane damage you can deal, or arcane healing you can deal as well. So Arcane Blast could actually be good in that case, even for mage healers. Next up you have Ice Lance, deals X amount of frost damage to an enemy target, and causes triple damage against frozen targets. With that being said, we have some suggested combos in this case, and we have 4 for the mage. Number 1 is the Fire Mage. I've combined Living Flame, Burnout, and Living Bomb in this case. You could make an argument for also picking Icy Veins over the other one. It just depends on how you want to play, but these are all literal fire abilities, so it just makes sense. The next combination we're going to talk about right here is the Frost Mage. Once again, really good mage ability, or mage talent right here, mage build. You have Ice Lance, Fingers of Frost. Those two work really well together, by the way, because the Fingers of Frost makes it so all your abilities act as if the target is frozen, and Ice Lance deals triple damage against frozen targets. Icy Veins on top, giving you more spellcasting speed, absolutely great. Now the next one I'm going to talk about is Arcane DPS. For this one I've combined Enlightenment with Arcane Surge with Arcane Blast. Pretty obvious on that one, all of them being arcane abilities, all of them acting based on your mana, and it's just overall really good for Arcane. I don't really know if anyone's going to play Arcane DPS, but it's looking pretty good, I'm not going to lie. And last but not least, we have the Arcane Healer in this case. I've chosen to combine Mass Regeneration, Regular Regeneration, and Rewind Time. These are the obvious healer choices, but once again, you could make an argument for actually picking the other one, Arcane Blast, because it increases arcane damage done and arcane healing done as well. So you could pick that one over Rewind Time, it just depends on the boss fight. Either way, that is pretty much the mage overview, so once again, hopefully you enjoyed that, hopefully it taught you something new, and let me know if you're playing a mage in the comments down below, which spec would you play? Either way, that's pretty much what I have for you today, a pretty simple overview of the mage, all of the new class runes and class abilities, and some suggested combos. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, and subscribe for more. I'll see you in Season of Mastery, Season of Discovery. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again very soon.